clean, old-fashioned hate is taking place in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia for the first time ever. And this one is going to be fun. Two 9-2 teams going at it. Georgia has won 7 in a row over Georgia Tech. My goodness. That streak is the longest streak in this rivalry by either team. So nobody has owned clean old-fashioned hate as much as Georgia has the past 7 years. But last year, it looked like that curse was going to be broken. It looked like Georgia Tech was going to come through and win in Athens. They were dominating. They were up 17 at halftime. They were playing so good, and then they fumbled it away at the last second. Georgia scored 2 touchdowns with like 2 minutes left, sent it to overtime, an 8 overtime classic of a finish. I remember I was watching this game in my friend's apartment while I was on FaceTime with 3 of my other friends. One was in Notre Dame, one was in Houston, and one was in College Station. And I was in Tuscaloosa. We were all watching this game at the same time. It was epic. And of course, I was cheering for Georgia Tech just because I wanted to see the upset. But Georgia ended up pulling it out. A huge win for the Bulldogs, elevated them to their SEC championship win, and got them a top 4 seed in the college football playoffs. And similar things are at stake for the Bulldogs in this game as well. So we're going to break this one down. I cannot wait to talk about it. I think this is going to be a really interesting game, contrary to popular belief. So let's look at what's at stake for Georgia, what's at stake for the Bulldogs. So, as I already said, if they win this game, that's 8 in a row against Georgia Tech. I mean, my goodness. And then that would be expanding on their longest streak ever, on the longest streak ever in this rivalry. And then if they win this game, they 100% seal a playoff spot, which would be their 3rd playoff appearance in the last 4 seasons. And a lot of people think that Georgia has already sealed a playoff spot. I kind of tend to agree with that. But if you lose this game, you are putting your playoff spot into the hands of the committee. And honestly, at this point, I would not trust a pillow in the hands of the committee. I think they would find a way to shatter that. I don't like what the committee is doing right now. I don't think they're making a lot of sense. And if Georgia loses this game, not only are they 10-2, but Georgia Tech is also 10-2. And the committee could say, you know what? We're taking head to head. We're putting the 10-2 team that beats you over you. And if Georgia Tech is over Georgia, that means all the teams that are over Georgia Tech are also going to be over Georgia. And then Georgia they might miss it. I mean, who knows? Anything can happen. And also, if they lose this game, their win streak over Georgia Tech is snapped and their hold on the rivalry is released. That being said, I think Georgia Tech has more at stake in this game than Georgia does. I mean, if Georgia Tech wins this game, that will give them 10 wins for the first time since 1990. It has been 35 years since Georgia Tech has had a 10-win season, and if they win this game, they will achieve that feat. They would also snap their 7-game losing streak to Georgia, and that would feel so good for the Yellow Jackets. And they have a very outside chance of a playoff berth. Of course, I just explained the logic there. I mean, I don't think this is how logic should work. I don't think if Georgia Tech wins, they should be in the playoffs. But the committee might put them in. If they're 10-2 with the win over Georgia, they have an argument. There's at least an argument to be had. And then if they lose this game, it would be very sad because Georgia Tech started the season 8-0. They were in the top 10. They were looking great. They had very high odds to make the ACC championship game and then make the playoffs. But if they lose this game, they would have started historically 8-0 and they would have finished 1-3 to just go 9-3 on the year, and it would just kind of be a forgettable season. So Georgia Tech wants to avoid that at all costs. And of course, the Georgia woes continue for Georgia Tech if they lose this game, especially if it's a nail biter and it comes down to the wire and they fumble it away at the end. And then Haynes King, my favorite player in college football, his legendary career would be over with a loss to Georgia, and nobody wants to see that happen because everybody loves Haynes King. He's an absolute baller, and he's one of the toughest players that college football has ever seen. So with that being said, let's break it down. Let's look at this game. And some people might say, well, Robert, there's no way Georgia Tech's going to win this game. Their defense isn't good. This is Georgia Tech going up against Georgia. It's David versus Goliath. How on earth could they pull this off? Well, did you watch the game last year? Because it sure looks to me that Georgia Tech was the better team on that field. And so how was that the case? Because obviously, Georgia Tech finished the year 7-5. Georgia won the SEC and went 12-1 or 11-2. So how on earth did Georgia Tech outplay Georgia? Well, the first thing they did was they came out hot, especially in the first half. I mean, just look at their drives in the first half. They went 8 plays, 61 yards to start the game, kicked a field goal. Then they went 7 plays, 41 yards, and turn it over on downs, but that's still a solid drive. And then they went 10 plays, 79 yards. That's usually good enough for a touchdown, but unfortunately they missed a field goal, so they left meat on the bone. And then they went 8 plays, 66 yards and a touchdown, and then 11 plays, 63 yards and a touchdown. Those are all so solid drives to start a game against a great Georgia team, a very well coached Georgia defense. And even then, they left meat on the bone. They were up 17-0 at halftime, and it could have been more. If we look at the rushing yards, Georgia Tech had a huge advantage. They outrushed Georgia 260 to 108. They dominated the line of scrimmage. And when you can control the game on the ground, you can control the whole game. And they did that, as you can see with time of possession. They had way more time of possession than Georgia. Their team was on the field, or their offense was on the field 15 minutes more than Georgia was. They were able to keep Carson Beck and those receivers and Mike Bobo's team off the field. And because of that, they put themselves into a great position to win this game. So that's what happened last year. Can they do that again this year? We'll see. Let's look at this Georgia Tech offense. It's been pretty good this year. First in the ACC in total yards per game. They've been flying down the field. And they haven't really done that through the air. Of course, Haynes King, I love the guy. You just heard me say he's my favorite player in college football. I think he's fantastic. But he's not an elite passer with elite arm talent. That's just pretty simple. Everyone who's watched Haynes King knows that. But what can Georgia Tech do? They can run the ball so well. They will give Haynes King like 20 to 25 carries in this game. I'm sure of it. He has 883 rushing yards on the season with 15 touchdowns. And if Haynes King, I wrote this in the notes, Haynes King will die on that field if that's what it takes. That is 100% true. Haynes King will give everything he has got in this football game to win it for Georgia Tech. That's why he's one of my favorite players in the sport, and I think that's why it's going to be a fun game to watch. And I don't really know. It's weird. Malachi Holsey has been a really good running back for Georgia the last month or so, but he didn't really play very much against Pitt. I don't really know why. He could be injured. It's sort of a weird thing. I tried to do some research, but I couldn't really figure very many things out. But he's averaging 7.5 yards per carry, which is really good. So without him, I mean, they'll have Jamal Haynes, who's a solid back for sure, but I just think Holsey is way more dynamic. So if they have him, I think that's a very big advantage. So we'll see. We'll see about that. I think that's going to be a very important thing to look out for. But I mean, Georgia Tech doesn't allow very many sacks. I think that's an important thing to watch also. But to me, the answer to the question for Georgia Tech's offense: can they run the ball well? Can they control the game? And does Brett Key have a dynamite game plan to go out and start this game like they did last year? If that's the case, they give themselves a shot. But they're going to have to do it against an elite Georgia defense. This is a Georgia defense that is much improved. It's been improving all season long. They're fourth in the SEC in yards allowed per game, and they especially excel against the run because of how good their linebackers are. And I just cannot stress this enough. CJ Allen is so good. If you watch his tape, that dude is just all over the field at all times. Number 3 is one of, if not the best players in college football on the defensive side of the ball. I know I said that about Colin Simmons in my Texas A&M preview, but CJ Allen and Colin Simmons, I mean, they're very different players. They're both so good. They are the 2 best defensive players in the SEC, and those guys wreak havoc. I will say Georgia, they don't really get to the quarterback very often. They're last in the SEC in sacks with only 16 all season long in the 11 games they've played. But Georgia Tech's offense is run so that you don't really have the opportunity to get to the quarterback. So I don't really think that's going to matter very much in this game. I think on this side of the ball, the game is going to be decided between can Georgia Tech run the ball and can Georgia stop the run? Because Georgia Tech's elite at running the ball and Georgia is elite at stopping the run. So that's going to be the battle. Georgia, offensively, has been improving each and every game. I mean, they're not like an elite statistical offense by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you can look at the numbers. They're not the most elite team ever on the offensive side of the ball, but they are good, man. They are so, so good, and they're fun to watch, and they're so well coached. I, legitimately, if I'm being completely honest, I had a little bit of hate towards Mike Bobo in the first half of the season, but Mike Bobo has been putting on masterclass after masterclass, and I have had so much respect, and I am officially apologizing to Mike Bobo for critiquing him at all. Mike Bobo is awesome. And because of Mike Bobo and because of his work ethic, Gunnar Stockton has been getting better and better and better. I mean, just look at his last 4 games against Ole Miss, Florida, Mississippi State, and Texas. Those are good numbers, man. That's solid completion percentages. Very few turnovers. The turnover against Texas was just a crazy play from Anthony Hill. I'm not counting that one against him. And he's just putting up yards, and he's doing it efficiently. And he's just progressed and progressed and progressed. And he's gone from being afraid to throw the ball downfield to not being afraid to throw the ball downfield to throwing it downfield accurately but not on time to now being in rhythm, not afraid, and accurate. And he is scary. I think Lawson Lucky and Oscar Delp are the unsung heroes of this offense. They are so elite. I cannot stress that enough, how elite Lawson Lucky and Oscar Delp are at blocking. Like, the reason that Georgia's rush game is fourth in the SEC is because they block so well at the tight end position. And then I will say this all year. I've been saying this all year. Good luck tackling Zachariah Branch. He is a human joystick. He is crazy. He is so fun to watch. And I think with the loss of God, what's his name? With the loss of Colby Young, Noah Thomas is crucial to this offense as their X receiver. I think he played well against Texas. I mean, he scored 2 touchdowns and he was great out there. I just don't think he's the most consistent blocker, and I think he has a lot of drops. So I still don't love Noah Thomas, but I think his success is kind of crucial to this offense. So we'll see what happens with them the rest of the year. And they'll be going up against a, not very good Georgia Tech defense. That's not what they hang their hat on. The defense is not the strong suit of this team. They are third to last in the ACC in yards allowed per game, and they allow a heck of a lot of rushing yards. And Georgia can run the ball very well, so that is an area of concern for sure in this game. I mean, they just got torched by Pitt last week on the ground by Pitt's backup running back. So I don't. It's tough to point out a strength in this Georgia Tech defense. If anything, it's the pass rush. So if they can win on third downs and pass rush, then they can succeed. But in my opinion, why they were great last year against Georgia was because they forced turnovers and they were really good on third down. And they're 66th this year in the nation on third down defensively, and they're 130th in turnovers forced, which is out of 137 teams. So that's very bad. So this Georgia Tech defense does not impress me at all. So, with all that on the line, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, with the Georgia Bulldogs and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, playoff hopes linger, SEC title hopes linger. Actually, they don't linger. Doesn't really matter if Georgia wins this game or not for the SEC title hopes. But all this stuff is up in the air. So, who do I have winning this game? I've got the Georgia Bulldogs. I got them pulling it out 38-24. I think when you can run the ball consistently, you can really control the game. And I think Georgia's elite rushing attack with their elite run blocking is going to be able to find a lot of success against this weak and banged up Georgia Tech front seven. I think that's going to be the key to the game. Georgia Tech, like I said, they can't really force turnovers. And Gunnar Stockton, didn't mean to do that. There you go. And Gunnar Stockton has been very smart with the football. And then I just wrote C.J. Allen because Georgia Tech is going to have to. They're going to run a lot of motion. They're going to run a lot of eye candy. And there's no one in college football better at sniffing that out than C.J. Allen. I think he plays a huge role in this game. I think he balls out. And I got Georgia winning 38-24. If Georgia Tech wants to win, they have to do what they did last year. They have to jump out to an early lead like they did last year. They have to dominate time of possession like they did last year. They need a lucky turnover or two because they can't force turnovers, so they need Georgia to kind of give it to them. And they cannot make it easy for Georgia. And what I mean like that is mental errors, penalties, bad turnovers, drops, special teams mistakes, missed tackles. They cannot have that if they want to win this game. They have to be perfect in the little things. And I just think Georgia's more talented. I think they're too good. And it's not going to be much of a home field advantage for Georgia Tech because it's in Atlanta. A ton of Georgia fans are around the area. I'm in the area right now. I'm not going to be cheering for really either of these teams. I'm just going to be watching for the good game. But it's going to be a fun one to watch. 2:30 Central Time, 3:30 local kick on ABC. And I've got Georgia winning clean old-fashioned hate for the 8th time in a row. So sorry, Georgia Tech fans. This year is not your year. And thanks so much for watching, folks. If you're a Georgia or Georgia Tech fan, thanks for being here. And just make sure you always know that Jesus loves you. God is real. And if you don't believe in him, that's completely fine. He believes in you, and he will always be there for you. So with that, thanks for watching, and God bless.